Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the AI Interconnect podcast. I'm your host, Lauren. At AI Interconnect, we explore a real conversation with founders and operators building across AI, fintech, compliance, and global tech ecosystem. Today, I'm joined by Jay Chakraborty, managing partner at Zideas. And Zideas is a global advisory firm that builds technology ecosystems and helps enterprises navigate AI, risk, and regulatory transformation. Jay, thank you so much for being here. Very, very happy to have you on the show.
Lauren, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That's great. Let's start with your background so listeners understand the path that led you here. You have spent decades working with global institutions and large enterprises, which is a very different path from most founders. Jay, how did your background across global consulting and large organization lead you to build Zidea or Z idea and focus on an ecosystem driven model?
Yeah, so Lauren, thank you for the question. Meaning, I think like anybody, meaning your life is a conglomeration and assimilation of all the experiences you have had. And I've had the blessing, I have the benefit of working around the world. I had been to almost 40 countries across the world as part of my professional journey. And that journey really led me to, I would say, plentiful experiences, mostly good, but some not so good as well. But we've experiences about the culture, about the business paradigm, about notions of the society and all of that across the world. And it's a fascinating journey that I think I want and I would hope that most people have. My career started in India when India started exploring building its own cars. For a long time, India was importing Japanese cars primarily. And I think the Tata Group, which is a big name in India, the Tata Group wanted to build its own passenger cars for the first time. It was called Nano, of all things. And it was that time that I started my professional journey. And this was like 96, 97-ish. So almost 3 decades back. Worked there for about a couple of years, had a great experiences in Tata. And then because of that particular work, I got an opportunity to come to Silicon Valley. And believe it or not, that was my first plane journey from India to California. And I landed in San Francisco in the middle of what it was called the Y2K event. So basically it was 2000. I came in 7th of January 2000. And this was the year 1999 and 1998 and 2000. These couple of years, people were paranoid. And I see the same thing today with AI as well. People are paranoid of what will happen. Systems will break, businesses will completely be impacted and whatnot. But nothing happened. We're all living and we had a good life since that day. So 2000, I came to this country in California. I was a software engineer in very, very deep in software engineering, technical architecture, building web portals, which was really a craze. Just like today for AI, it was a craze to do anything you see, just add a .com, build a website, and you'd be rich. That was the whole hype back then. So survived Silicon Valley for about a year or so. Then I actually moved to New York because I always was interested to work in finance and the financial services. Came to New York, and then I've been living in this New York area, in the greater New York area for the last 25 years, essentially. So again, work in big banks, big institutions, pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies in my 25 years of experiences here. And again, had the fortune, as I said, to travel to over 40 countries as part of my client work. All of that led to, a itch and a strong intent of trying to build something on my own, especially when the whole world is changing. So I left my last job at the beginning of 2025. So 1st of Jan, I separated out from my prior employer and formed this company, Zideas. And Zideas is born in the AI era, and we're really proud. Like, we don't adapt to AI, we are born in the AI era, and that's definitely an advantage. And we are an AI-first consultancy that is focused on true transformation using smart AI. And we'll talk, of course, a little bit of what I mean by smart AI, but it's a smart AI. And our team really has a lot of experiences. We have combined 150 years of experiences working in big tech and big financial companies, big payment companies, and whatnot. And we have worked across the world, not just me, but a lot of our people have worked across the world. There have been GMs in Europe, there have been compliance officers in Asia, there have been chief product officers in Singapore and whatnot. So we pride ourselves on our knowledge, on the depth, and really, honestly, our integrity of doing the right thing for our clients. So that's that's a good enough response, I think, in terms of where I came from and how I found the company that we have right now, Laurent.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for these insights. And yeah, great journey to up to now. This is still young, all this. What stand out is that you are not positioning the idea as a single product company, but more as an ecosystem of partners and solutions. When you explain the idea to someone outside your industry, how do you describe what you actually do and who you help?
Just like, and I think so, we are born in the AI era, which means that the next decade or next lifetime for all of us will really involve AI, just like today we use internet for everything we do, right? So in that particular construct of what the future will look like, we believe that every single consultancy or advising or projects help that we provide to our clients have to be based on an AI product or AI accelerator or AI tool. So instead of building everything by ourselves, or instead of claiming that a lot of companies claim we are good at everything, and mostly they're not good, and nobody can be good at everything. It's an impossible construct. So we, instead of claiming ourselves to be good at everything, we say we are good at some things, but what we really bring in is the best in class. So I'll tell you one example. Everybody today in the AI era is talking about AI model explainability and interpretability, because AI can tell you this is the right decision, but it cannot explain. Most products and most AI models would really be in difficult position if you say, okay, explain to me why do you think that's the best solution. That interpretability and explainability of the AI decision is a major headache, especially in regulated industries. So for example, if your life is dependent on an AI decision and the AI can't even tell you and explain to you the end-to-end process of how it came to the decision, you would of course have a lot of questions. So this is a real problem today. As of February 2026, that's a real problem. Most big vendors, and I can name Anthropic, I can name Google, I can name OpenAI, they have not been able to solve that problem at scale. They can probably solve a little bit some models in that construct of a lab, but not in a large scale. So we are actually partnering with one of the top scientific communities in India, small AI firm that nobody has probably knows the name about, because they have found a specific algorithm that can provide a lot more explainability for AI models than what I think a typical chain of thought, for example, the COT, the chain of thought, does. So we are looking for the best in class solutions, and that means that we got to run as an ecosystem, and we are an ecosystem of equals. So we have a partnership with a lot of good companies, a lot of good people around the world. So we are really coming to our clients with a whole set offering with only the best in class and the things that will solve their real problems.
Okay, awesome. Which type of institution benefit the most from your work? Banks, fintechs, crypto firm, or enterprise tech companies in general?
So and I think at this point, most of our focus, I mean, we are a small company, our company was formed just in January of last year, 2025. Again, as I said, we can be everything to everybody. We are focused primarily in the financial services area because that's where most of our experts come from. And in the financial services area, as you can imagine, banks, payment companies, crypto companies, in fact, broker dealers, they all operate on that same ecosystem. So I think that's kind of our focus right now in the financial services.
Okay. And lastly, if I want to go a little bit deeper, what part of your offering create the most strategic leverage for clients?
I think I call it intentional rewiring of the organization in the AI days, right? So, for example, a lot of the companies are trying to be the first winner in AI. And what they're doing fundamentally is they're basically automating their current processes and say, okay, I want to cut cost. I want to make sure I take away the human labor there, but and then just automate through agentic AI. Meaning you'll see more and more a lot of companies trying to do the same thing, which is automate the existing processes through the use of agentic AI. We believe there has to be a different paradigm there, because if you automate a not so efficient process, you are going to not get the optimized results. So we are really focused on strategic rewiring and intentional change within the organization, because once you have to redesign the process to make sure this is something you want to carry on for the next 20 years, then try to use agentic AI. So it's not a technology problem, I think. So our focus really is to really look at the business, a part of the business, figuring out what is working and what needs to be fixed, rewire the organizational processes, and then implement the agentic AI framework on top of it. So you actually carry forward something that is really needs to be carried forward and not the baggage of the old time. So I think the strategic rewiring on and using the agentic AI in the right way is probably one of our biggest differentiators. We would want to pride, and we want to just do that service. We don't want to do an automation of your existing processes without assessing if this is the real process. And this is not our decision. This is basically the client's decision, but we'll bring in those diagnostics, making sure that they understand what it means to the process, what's happening in the process today, before they kind of go for, the agentic AI and everything else.
Yeah, beautiful. That resonates a lot for me. Building in global ecosystem across multiple region is complex and operationally demanding. Right now, what feel like the hardest part of running and scaling Zidea as a global ecosystem company?
I think is the effort, and I think I'll tell two things. Is one is the effort, right? So of course, the first, like for any founder or any company that is being born, the first 3 to 4 years is really going to be a lot of effort, humongous effort. So most of us work around the clock. Luckily, we have a team of people that are extremely brilliant. They're extremely hardworking, but I think that ethos of hard work is needed is kind of one of the things that I think we always focused on. And so that's one, because everything is you get one chance for one door. As a small company, as a new entrant in this place, you don't get 5 calls. You get one call, and you got to make sure you're ready for that call at any given time. So the effort and the readiness is kind of the two main things. I won't say that's a challenge, but that's something you have to be ready with as a small company. And regardless whether it's Zideas or some other company, everybody went through the same thing, whether it's Elon Musk company or OpenAI, like 5 years back, they went through the same journey like us. So it's a matter of you have to go through that and to make sure. And the last thing is really credibility and integrity. Like you will get that one chance. You made a very good impression, but we don't behave like a typical company. In fact, we recently we actually responded to an RFP for a particular bank out in California. And we told the bank that we do not have a product, but we have a solution for you. And we would also advise for you to not to buy an agentic AI product, because everybody's going to tell you some sunny day scenario, kind of a glossy kind of output, but that product doesn't exist. So sometimes you have to rely on your integrity, sometimes rely on your trust, rely on your experiences, rely on your knowledge, and really tell the client what they should hear, not they want to hear. So I think that integrity and ingenuity in terms of who you are and what you're offering is paramount to us. So I think besides the effort and the readiness piece, I think that courage to talk the truth, the courage to talk, be open and transparent to your clients is probably the third biggest thing that I think, we pride ourselves on that. And that's kind of how we focus our businesses on.
I love it. Okay. Where do you feel the most friction today? Market expansion, positioning, or partnerships?
I think it's really the brand awareness, for lack of a better word. That's where the most of the difficulty comes in. Like if you are a new company, let's say even if you have Elon Musk in our board, but because it's Zideas, people are sometimes hesitant to give you a chance, essentially. Again, it's not uncommon. And when we came to the business, we formed the business, we kind of anticipated that. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's too painful, but it is a little bit disheartening that people always go to the big companies and the smaller guys and the smaller companies don't get enough chances. In fact, I was actually, as part of my other roles within the place that I live in my state, I am one of, I'm a board member in some of the other nonprofit organizations. And one of the biggest thing is how can the government and the public sector open up and really encourage private side to really give more opportunities to small businesses. So that's always been a little bit of a challenge, but you got to try and you got to hustle and you got to keep on trying, and some doors will be open for you.
That's logical, definitely. You mentioned not having a strong footprint in Europe yet. What makes that expansion more complex than other regions?
And again, I'm not an expert in Europe, so I put that as a disclaimer because not everything I say may be sacrosanct truth, and I'll welcome any other idea or any other viewpoint, like we always should. But for me, Europe, I think the language barrier. So let's say if you're in UK, you can speak in England, you can do the business in England in English, right? In Germany, you got to speak German. In Italy, you got to speak Italian. So I think the language barrier is definitely one. And when I say barrier, English is everybody speaks and does business in English. But the added advantage, if you speak Italian or German or French, like you cannot discount it. So I think that is one. Unless I have a native person who can speak in the language, I think we are at a disadvantage. So that's definitely one. The second thing is in Europe, you got to have. I think that you got to be able to overcome the current geopolitical tension. Meaning, it seems the whole world is against Europe right now. Like, and I will name names here, but I think geopolitical tensions is definitely another challenge at the current time. And again, like before, if it would have been 5 years back, like any US company can go in and get a meeting if they have a right product and the right solution. Right now, and I would say for all the right reasons, Europe is looking more inward than outward, just like everybody else is. So I think a little bit of this is the timing and geopolitical tensions right now. I think that's the second biggest factor, which is where, again, it's a little more difficult. But again, I think these are all temporary. We live through changing times, and I'm sure this time will also change.
Definitely. You'll find somebody speaking French and Spanish also, no problem.
Yes.
Okay, then you highlighted something very important in our first conversation. Regulation is becoming a major growth driver, not just a constraint. From your vantage point, working with banks, fintech, and crypto companies, what shift in regulation or technology is most underappreciated right now?
So I'll tell you this way: the regulatory regime across the world is different. So, for example, in the banking world, in the US, regulations are a lot more prescriptive. You got to do this. You cannot charge overdraft fees more than $35 and things like that. So it's a lot more prescriptive. The US in Europe, compared to that, in Europe and in most parts of Asia, the regulatory regime is more principle based, which means that you should not cheat a customer, or you cannot harm a customer, and things like that. So I think that the prescriptive versus the policy, the nature of the regulatory regime in each of these regions is different. So that is certainly something you got to be aware of. And the second thing is, again, regulations generally tend to lag behind the technological advances. So, for example, right now, there are certain regulations in Europe, and I'll call out MiCA, for example. MiCA, that regulation came in about 2 years back, but I think if I look at now today's technology and today's industry, there has to be a lot more changes in MiCA or in DORA. So sometimes regulations, even with the right intent, they cannot foresee the changes, and hence they may have to adapt and whatnot. So I think the regulatory regime overall is changing, but the two main things that are going to be different, again, do you want to be a very, very prescriptive regulatory regime, or you want to be a little bit more principle-based? It have to be decided. Number two is, again, I think, is it fit for purpose? And most regulations, meaning in the emerging areas, the word that I work in, the AI, the data, the cloud, the infrastructure, there's a lot more to do. And crypto is a perfect example, right? Meaning until last year, there was no really hard regulatory regime for crypto in the US. Right now, there's only a framework with the whole new act that came in, the Genius Act that came in. It's only a framework. But again, the regulatory regime for crypto has to be developed to really make it more adopted in the mainstream financial services industry, right? So there's those different things that I think really impacting the regulatory regime right now. But again, I think everybody's trying. So I definitely don't want to call it like a doomsday scenario, but I think everybody's trying. And I think more and more advances are being made in this area as well.
Yeah, definitely. Then during our pre-conversation, you said something very insightful, that many markets need education before they're ready to buy. I agree. Why do you believe education is becoming more important than direct selling, especially in regulated market or complex technology sectors?
Yeah, meaning I won't say it's a direct fallout of regulation, but I think the second point, technology innovation. Technology is moving so fast. As I said, like today, anytime you use the word AI or use the word agentic AI, you have like 100 eyeballs looking at you. But when you go underneath, I thought I'll go to that particular topic a little bit later, but you asked the questions. But let me tell you, agentic AI or even AI today has got we talk about data privacy risk. Okay, fine. You're collecting data, using my data without letting me know. Okay, that was even before people were doing that. And that's where in Europe, the whole Digital Marketing Act and the Digital Stability DSA and DMA came to being. It's really to protect consumer data and protect consumers from harm from these big technology companies, right? So DSA and DMA came in about 3-4 years back. Right now, what nobody's talking about is something called technology debt. The way agentic AI works, the biggest danger, let's say you have the right intent. You are doing the right thing. You're protecting your data. You're only using it for certain things. You have a human in the loop. Great, great, great. All good. There's one thing that still people are not talking about, and the tech companies are not talking about, which is called technology debt. Every single call that you make to an LLM costs money. And that money is the big, there's a lot of different factors, but if you do, and again, I won't name because that's not a positive comment I'm going to make, but one of the largest banks in the US is training all of their employees in agentic AI. Now, that's great. You do that. Of course, you have to do that. But you got to have guardrails around the cost of using an agentic AI, the cost and the costing and the discipline of when to use and when not to use got to be more real world, like more prime time. And I have a term, I call it tokenomics, which is economics of token usage. That is going to be the next big thing, the next thing that people need to talk about more and more, because just like any technology, it looks cool and it does fancy stuff, and it can make your video a lot more better. Like the way I look, I can use any of the models to make me look better, but everything is a matter of cost. And so context streaming, model tiering, caching up prior info, all of these things have to be a lot more prime. And again, who's going to talk about it? The consumers have to talk about it, because the producers, the companies who are building the LLM engines and really building their business on AI consumption, they have no incentive to talk about it. And I think it's a little bit unreal to see how much the push is to use AI, but not so much about the true cost of using AI. And so the technology debt is really one of the main things that I think people need to talk about more in 2026. And again, this is all about tokenomics. You have to understand what a token is, and different models use different times, and what's the cost of the token consumption is. So I think that is something. So that's the one example of why education is so important. You can make, in my case, I can go and I could have told this bank, yeah, I can do all of this stuff. But what I really told them is about this real reason of why the consumption of token and the tokenomics aspect of the economics of token consumption and token pricing is so important. Number one. And number two, it is basically becoming more and more easier for people to build their own applications. So why would you buy any other SaaS product anyway? So things like that, I think you got to be bold enough, you got to be confident enough, you got to be honest enough to talk about with your clients, because otherwise you're not doing them through service, you're doing a disservice at the end of the day by pushing your product in, but that may not be the optimal for the client in that particular case.
Yeah, definitely. Education is and tokenomics. I love this. I love this term. Education is so important. Do you see a gap between technology and innovation and market understanding?
200%, 300% even, I will say, because like anything else, like cloud went through the same thing, right? When cloud came in about 5 years back, Laurent, everybody wanted to jump on cloud because what? Why? Because they thought that if I have an on-prem and I'm using a small organization, an on-prem infrastructure of servers and CPUs and storage and everything else, and let's say I do 2 million, the way the cloud companies came in is, hey, if you go to cloud, you probably have a tenth of that cost because you don't use all of those computing power all the time. And in cloud, you're only going to be paying for what you use. But guess what? Most people ended up in the first couple of years, most people ending up actually paying more for cloud infrastructure than on-prem because of the way the pricing operated. So I think exactly the same thing here. I think in terms of AI as well, I think there has to be an aspect of a little bit more maturity and a little bit more education that needs to be embedded before it becomes mainstream.
Yeah. Um, you are building offices across the US, Canada, and other region while exploring Europe as the next strategic area.
Mhm.
Looking ahead 12 to 18 months, what does success realistically look like for the ideas as a global ecosystem?
I think definitely a specific presence in Europe. And when I say Europe, I mean the greater Europe, the UK included. I think maybe one or two centers there. And in the next like 24 months, if we can get 10 clients, 10 clients who we can serve, I think that will be, we'll consider that to be a check mark, one of the items in the checklist, of course. And then really making sure that we are embedded in the right way. So what works in US may not work in Europe and vice versa. And there's certain specific stuff like, for example, in US there's already some traction on shadow AI. Shadow AI means that what me as an individual is doing is not aligned to the governance policy of AI for a company, right? So shadow AI in Europe, shadow IT is talked about a lot. There are specific regulations that are talked about a lot. But shadow AI as a concept, for example, has not been talked about enough in the European market yet. So I think part of what I'm trying to say is like there may be certain specific services we can launch in Europe more than in US and things like that. But again, I think 5 to 10 clients, having probably 2 to 3 offices, and making sure we are really serving the local client with local team is really going to be considered a good measure of what we've been able to achieve there.
Okay, okay, yeah, and what strategic partnerships would accelerate your expansion the most?
We already have certain partnerships in Europe. We have definitely a partnership with a blockchain platform company based out from Luxembourg. We have that. We have another company that specializes in AI-enabled GRC platform. So they have a pretty good product there. We do have partners there, but I think a little bit more on the not so much partnership, but I think again the client and being able to getting the clientele would be a good measure. I mean, partnerships just come, I think, in terms of what we need. But I think with the ecosystem that we have now been able to build in the last 1 year or so, I think we feel pretty good about it right now.
Okay, I love it. And what are you deliberately not doing right now to stay focused?
I'll answer the question a slightly different way. I think the irony of a new companies is you have to say more no than yeses. There are every day I probably get 100 outreaches, either for partnership or for AI enabled marketing, which is really like that's the biggest volume. Like we can be your default CMO, the chief marketing officer, everything else. So I think there's a lot of no that we have to say. We actually refused a partnership with a specific company because we believe the culture was not the same, because the values are not the same. And again, if you really have to stay true to who you are, and as I said, you want to truly believe in a business of ingenuity and honesty and integrity, you have to really look at the cultural fit within the ecosystem. And so the irony of all of this is I have to say a lot more no than yeses. But that's very, very deliberate in terms of what you're saying. What we are not doing is we are not going for every single offer that comes to me or comes to our company. We go through a very, very formal vetting process, including a big portion of that is really the culture fit or the fit of values between the two companies. And of course, we do a strong reference check with active customers. And, that kind of weeds out the good from the not so good, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, you work with large brand, fintech firm, and global tech organization, which give you a very practical view of execution. Based on your experience, what should funders and operators in AI, fintech, and compliance focused company start doing or stop doing today?
I think the answer would depend on what kind of company you want to build. I'll tell you why I say that. Is fundamentally there are maybe two main types. Either you build a product or you offer a service, right? So you have to first figure out which branch you want to go into. And the second is in either or, you have to now select, prefer or really make a decision whether you want to go to a consumer directly, so B2C. So you have to make those decisions based on your strengths, your positioning, what you're good at, where you feel the opportunities, and so on and so on. So let's say you make the decision. The next big thing that I think you got to make sure for as a founder, as a new founder, is going to be staying loyal to that vision for at least for 3 years. You will get a lot of counter advices. You'll hear a lot of other people saying, "Oh my God!" Like I'll tell you my example. I formed the companies to start with what I know I can be good at, which is really designed to execution, but at the clients using the client's infrastructure and data and everything else, which means it's a custom service for every single client. And I got probably more advices to say, why are you not starting a product company today? It's so easy. It's going to be long lasting. Everybody gets rich in like 2 days if they build. And so, all kinds of advices. And for me, I personally, again, I come from a very, very strong technical background. As I said, I started my career in India, then in the Silicon Valley. I know how software engineering works. The biggest fallacy of product-based companies is I build a product and it's such a unique product that somebody will buy it. It will be the next big thing on the planet. It doesn't happen as often as it's showcased on the glossy magazines. Yes, Google was formed like that because there was not a market, but you have to really have like probably one in like a million product ideas would actually be that kind. And so I don't think I'm that, out of the way. I don't think myself as Elon Musk. I'm a very ordinary person, live through life, have my experiences, but I'm not Elon Musk, or I don't want to be like Elon Musk for that matter. So for me, be where you're strong and be what you're good at rather than following the trend and the hype. That's number one. And number two is any product company needs to really think about the financial discipline. And that is where most of them die. Like the first 6 months is all good. Even if you build a product, you now have to market it. You have to find customers. You have to travel. You have to meet with people. All of this costs money. So I think for me personally, I was not in the journey, and I decided on it. And then my commitment to myself and this company is, and my partners is, I will stay true to that vision for the next 3 to 4 years, because you got to give yourself that window. And patience, like I would probably say, decision, commitment, and then patience are probably the three main virtues of any founder in any industry, regardless of what you do. But I think those three are going to be the only thing that will make you successful. You got to give yourself the best chance, regardless of how the rest of the world says, right? So I think that's probably the only thing I can say.
Yeah, I like it. But then what habits or mindsets help you manage global complexity?
I think it's part of, again, as I said, if I would have been a 18-year-old, or as Mark Zuckerberg did, he was studying in a Harvard, and he was in the dorm, and he kind of again built a product. I don't think he had that experiences of how Facebook and whether Facebook will be popular across the world. I can guarantee you, like, I don't know what he will answer he will give, but I can tell you, for an 18-year or 19-year-old, that vision doesn't exist. But for me, I think I'm on the other side of the world, right, or the other side of life, right? I've done my 25 years of live experiences working in all these countries and the global places. So I think that gives me the confidence that what I know will stand the test of time. And honestly, for me, the biggest thing is I'm a global person. I've been to many places. I've worked in many places. My partners are all from different places. My founding team are all from different cultures and ethnicities. So I think if you have a team that all looks alike and feels alike, you probably have to look at it and see if this team is right enough for a global company. We have our chief product officer. He's a person from Mexico. One of our main, I would say, a risk model, quantitative model person. He's an ex-person from the Soviet Union. He's an ex-Soviet Union now in the US. We have partners in Qatar who are local to Qatar. They're doing business for 15 years in Qatar. So when you have that kind of an ecosystem, and that's reflective of the true globalization or the global phenomenon, I think then you can be, at least you're trying the right thing. So back to your question, I think forming a team and having prior experiences in the different regions of the world is definitely a good thing to have. It doesn't guarantee success, of course, but it is a good thing to have. And I think that's kind of how we are trying to do that here, Laurent.
Wonderful. And last one, what advice will you give to a founder trying to build a cross-border,
Yeah, and I think this is an easy answer, or more of a common answer. Then I'll tell the not so. I don't think that needs to be the case. Last couple of days, India hosted a big AI forum, right? All major companies, Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, everybody went there. Their CEO spoke. Their CEO spoke. And again, I just was just reading it, and that's what we do, right? And that's how we get our intels and all the perspectives. So one of the things that was a common thing there is actually called AI sovereignty, because every single country, Lawrence, right now, and I don't know how much awareness there is, but every country, including Europe, I'm saying not Europe as a whole, but every country within Europe has stood up a government function called DPA, Data Protection Authority. Everybody has it. Small countries have it, medium-sized countries have it, large countries, of course, they have it. So I think the first and foremost objective of any founder today needs to be to excel in their own ecosystem. So start from a place, stay true to your roots, and be exponentially good, very, very good in that particular region or that particular country or that particular, the continent, whatever that may be. So I would say that should be step number one. And then step two, if you're good in one country or one particular region, then it's much, much easier to scale it up. So now you got to probably change only 3 things to go to Middle East, or 4 things to go into US. But fundamentally, every region is on its own, essentially. And I think so. I go back to my earlier comment about this India AI conference and all the major companies is coming in. They call it's a localization. So localization is going to be important strategic priority rather than globalization. And in fact, with the current geopolitical trend, I would say localization has got a long shelf life, or at least for the next 5 to 10 years. So if you're local, you probably are not that bad at all. You don't have to go global at this point. Be local, be very good at it, try to get a sizable portion of the market, and then again, do incremental and go one step at a time.
Wonderful. Jay, thank you so much. We need another 2 hours. Thank you for joining and taking the time. This is a strong insight into your journey and your global ecosystem vision and the work you are doing and you're building at Zideas. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Lauren, just a conclusion. So of course, appreciate the opportunity, Lauren. When
Please.
again, you and me talked before. I truly believe like what you're doing is truly authentic for the right reasons. And as I said, that value-based business is what we believe in. So I only agreed to come on your podcast, and I've said no to a lot of other people, is because you're doing it for the right reasons. truly appreciate that, Laurent, and keep on doing what you're doing. The only thing I'll say that as part of Zideas, we also offer expert advisory services for free for anybody who needs it. Of course, we won't be able to really dedicate most of our time, but we do. And there are certain companies we're already helping in India and in the US and in Canada. So if any of your audience is interested, feel free to share our contacts and everything else. But we do provide some exactly to the same nature like you are doing for the greater good of the community. We do provide industry expert services or even advisory services or even something to share ideas and bounce off ideas. We do that quite a bit. And again, this is part of our small token of effort for the larger education piece that we talked about at the very beginning. But I think if you're not all educated and half of us going the left direction and that's not the right direction, I think that's going to be not a good thing for overall for the entire community and the entire world. So I offer you that, I offer to your audience as well. But Laurent, again, you are a wonderful initiative here. And again, let me know if I can be of any help. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. And right, I was about to ask you, where do people can reach you if you want to and
They
know
can,
about your work?
yeah, I mean, they can, again, we have our email info@zideasconsulting.com. That's the one email you can use. And also, like on our website, we do have a contact form. They can fill it out and then we'll respond to them.
Wonderful. It has been a great conversation, and we need to do it again in a year from now, and keep the conversation going. Jay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Laurent. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. And that's it for today's episode of AI Interconnect. And if you enjoy it, share it with someone who's building the future, or better yet, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Thank you, Jay. Great conversation.